Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butz, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.
This episode is made possible thanks to listeners like you. Want to support independent food radio? Go to heritageradionetwork.org/donate today.
I'm Luke Griffin, and you're listening to Bushwick Podcast, local stories for a strong community. Each week, we take you behind the scenes of the artists, activists, and entrepreneurs whose journeys collide in Bushwick, a special Brooklyn neighborhood that's changing faster by the day. As we've heard in previous episodes, Bushwick is one of Brooklyn's rising culinary epicenters. One of the things that makes the scene here so dynamic is that Bushwick's restaurants don't just serve good food. They reflect the culinary and artistic identities of visionary chefs with roots that range from right here in the city to communities around the world. This week, we're kicking off a two-part run about Vietnamese restaurants in Bushwick by sitting down with the chef behind one of the neighborhood's most fiercely original restaurants.
Just felt like, we were trying to do something authentic. We weren't, trying to be anything. We were just trying to be ourselves and showcasing a lot of the dishes that I grew up loving.
It's Thursday, July 25th, and this episode is called The Alchemy of Bunker. And as a heads up, there is a bit of strong language, but it's all in good fun. On a rainy day last month, we headed out to where Bushwick collides with the North Brooklyn Industrial Business Zone, past cavernous warehouses and rumbling shipping trucks, to visit one of Bushwick's most singular restaurants. It sits in a squat building just off some train tracks in a part of the neighborhood not so far from popular performance venues like Elsewhere and Brooklyn Mirage, but not so close to any kind of footpath that you might just reasonably stumble upon. No, this restaurant is a destination that invites people to step, if only for a meal, into its own self-contained world. You enter through a tiny red door beneath a set of string lights and step into a cavernous space filled with a kind of hyperactive explosion of primary colored surprises. Look in any direction and you might see a fleet of paper lanterns suspended from the ceiling, a corrugated tin shack that's somehow been transported indoors, or even a functioning skateboard quarter pipe. In a word, it's a lot.
The ambiance and the decor, the look, a lot of it has to do with skating, hip-hop. We used recycled items and, we like plants, trees, and stuff like that.
One feature you're sure not to miss, just beside the "Please wait to be seated" sign, is what looks like a banh mi street cart, set off with a pair of Playboy Bunny monograms and decorated in the kind of street team stickers you might expect to see covering a lamppost by the subway. Only, instead of advertising for a skate brand or a mixtape release, they say things like "Occupy Bunker" and "Bunker is not a crime." Bunker, in other words, is here, this eclectic space that serves as one of the city's most celebrated Vietnamese restaurants. It's the unique vision of co-founder and head chef Jimmy Tu.
My name is Jimmy Tu, chef owner of, part owner of Bunker.
We sat down with Jimmy on what you might swear was a set of repurposed grade school chairs in one of Bunker's communal dining areas to learn more about the journey behind this place and to explore what's next for one of Bushwick's most exciting restaurants. But to understand Bunker's place in Bushwick today and the future it's working toward here in the neighborhood, It's important to recognize first that the story of Bunker is one that begins decades ago, in a community just a few miles from here, but practically worlds away. The restaurant is actually the latest iteration of an evolving project that Jimmy's been building with a group of friends who he grew up with in the melting pot neighborhood of Elmhurst, Queens.
We were first generation kids and immigrants, and most of our parents were out working, and so, we spent most of our time growing up, like hanging out in the streets and, being influenced a lot by who you're around, our friends. And we got really into skateboarding and started hanging out with a group of guys in the neighborhood.
It's easy to see in the loud, street and skate-inspired decor of the restaurant how these childhood influences have made their way into present-day Bunker.
We started skating, in the 80s, mid-80s, and so, we were fortunate to I loved the hip-hop back in the 90s, 80s, and so we grew up with a lot of street culture.
But for all the aesthetics surrounding Bunker, at its core, it's about the food, and its menu reads like a celebration of Vietnamese street cuisine, with options that include familiar staples like banh mi and pho, and venture into more surprising territory like mushroom fried rice with homegrown mushrooms.
The food is, it's Vietnamese, and my background is Chinese Vietnamese, so you definitely get some of that mixture of, where I'm from in China. Generations of my family, they all grew up they were all born in Vietnam, maybe like 8 generations back.
Like Jimmy himself, Bunker is the product of a melting pot. And as much as the story of the restaurant is one about the culinary influences that have shaped Jimmy as a chef, it's about the myriad influences that have shaped him as a person. Some chefs are made, and some chefs are born. Jimmy seems very much the latter. He recalls growing up surrounded by good food, whether at home with his family or one of the restaurants his father owned when Jimmy was a kid.
He had some restaurants back in the day in the city, in Greenwich Village and one in Gramercy, Chinese restaurants. Yeah, I always considered him a pretty serious foodie. He opened me up to a lot of different cuisines that he really liked, like, specific dishes, like Taiwanese breakfast or like Malaysian food or Japanese, Korean, stuff like that. And just a lot of relatives, aunts, grandmas, uncles, my mom and my dad, they were all really good cooks.
Naturally, Jimmy became interested in cooking early. He remembers that when he was young, some of his dad's recipes were accepted into Gourmet magazine, and as a prize, the family got a free subscription. Though Jimmy had grown up around his family's cooking, these magazines were a window into a world of cuisines like he'd never seen before.
So yeah, they were sending us like Gourmet, and there was another magazine too that he submitted. It was a Food and Wine or Bon Appetit. But I remember Gourmet was the main one that I guess I was at junior high school at the time, and just looking at all these, a lot of like French stuff and European stuff and even American stuff that piqued my interest for sure, and
what was that like? Were you sitting at home reading through?
Yeah, just looking at the pictures and, like turkeys and, stuff like that.
But it wasn't just magazines where Jimmy found inspiration. Growing up in Elmhurst, he was surrounded by an incredibly diverse set of cultures and cuisines.
Elmhurst, I think still is. Back in the day, it was, I believe it was the most diverse neighborhood in the world. I grew up with like Egyptians, Jamaicans, all sorts of different Spanish, from South America, and all sorts of Asians, and I don't know, it was just really, really diverse.
So while Jimmy was stoking his culinary curiosity with magazine clippings at home, he was also exploring new foods out in his community.
I grew up actually with a lot of ethnic foods, just like a lot of my friends. Like I would eat my friends Jamaican. I remember his mom was an amazing cook. I loved eating there with, and oxtail stew, and there was like black-eyed peas with rice, and or South American or Korean. It was just Thai food is a big thing with me. I was born in Thailand, so always had a, big love for Thai food.
Across his neighborhood, his family, and his father's restaurants, a young Jimmy got a very early introduction to the dynamic world of cooking. And it seems like the more he learned, the more he came to appreciate the finer details of how a meal comes together.
I was always into food. So yeah, I was always hanging out in the kitchen, kind of checking it out. And my dad, when he would make like certain dishes, he would always like kind of break things down for me, explain stuff, why he's doing this, so,
As Jimmy got older, he became more and more interested in not just learning about food, but in becoming a part of the kitchen behind the scenes. And when he was in high school, he came across something like a big break. As a teenager, Jimmy began working for a mushroom and fine foods distributor.
They were French. They were getting mushrooms from all over the place, and we were packing mushrooms for established restaurants and for all the high-end restaurants, hotels, and stuff like that. And we were dealing with like crazy types of mushrooms, like lobster mushrooms, pom-poms, and chanterelles, and morels, and all that, porcinis. And this is in high school where I was like, what the fuck is this? This is crazy.
The job revealed the food industry in a way that even his father's kitchens couldn't, taking him behind the scenes of how some of the world's most elite restaurants thought about food and how ingredients come together to make a dish.
So that got me exposed to like the high-end restaurants, the quality restaurants, because we would like pack, I don't know if you're familiar with like Daniel or Boulet, or these are like high-end like French restaurants. So we would know like, oh, after a while, these guys, you got to give them the best shit. Otherwise, they're just gonna return it, And then there was other places that you could give them whatever, So yeah, we were just packing stuff and stuff like that.
Perhaps most importantly, Jimmy wasn't just exposed to the business of buying and selling different ingredients. Thanks to his boss at the distributor, he got to be up close and personal with the community of chefs calling the shots in the types of kitchens Jimmy had only read about.
The chef every year would have a fly fishing barbecue up he had a spot upstate. So I went that summer, and it was like chefs from all different types of restaurants, and Danielle was there, and it was like the most amazing barbecue. It was like scallops. The first time I had like venison, and these are all from like top chefs and stuff from the city, and so that was amazing. But yeah, that really started my interest in like restaurants and I guess high-end cuisine, like French.
It was a world that Jimmy knew he wanted to be a part of, even as he tried his hand at studying finance at a traditional college.
Well, I started in regular college finance, and so my dad, he wasn't happy. They weren't happy when I told them I wanted to, pursue a culinary education, or they come here, they want us to be doctors and lawyers, and
But he couldn't ignore the call he heard to become a chef. And as he thought about the futility of spending so much money on a degree he wouldn't need in the kitchen, he left college for culinary school, where he hit the ground running quickly. After finishing his program, he started working at different restaurants, mostly French, around the city. These early roles were intense, with long work hours and hard partying after hours.
It was crazy, man. It was fun, exciting times, man. I came into the scene, I think it was just about getting popular, or started to get popular, but not yet. Like, you didn't see like a lot of young kids. You didn't see, everybody I was working with was some like, I don't know, it was like musicians or some weird, I don't know, it was just different, hardcore dudes, and it was pretty, it was pretty shocking, like a lot of, just even the lifestyle, like people, we would just go out fucking drinking and hanging, whatever, just partying till 2, 3, 4, and just go back to work. Like, we had AM shifts, some people had a PM shift, they would hang out even later.
More importantly, Jimmy had to learn to thrive under the high expectations that came with performing in elite kitchens.
They were strict, man. We were like, it was like a lot of crazy stuff that I thought benefited me a lot later on, but I didn't realize it at the time. It just taught you a lot of discipline. Like fucking Danielle, like, I give you a box of peas, peeling, like little peas, just peeling the fucking skin off, because it was, it was like these, the cuisine itself was like, refined, and cutting like diamond onions out of diamond-shaped onions or tournoing potatoes.
Starting out as a young cook in the world of French fine dining was hard, and Jimmy had to work to impress the older European chefs who he was learning from.
Like you go into I remember some of these French kitchens, they were tough. Like they were all older, let's say guys in their 30s and 40s, French dudes, and they'll give you no respect, like brand new kid and, Asian kid, whatever, and you just got to earn their respect. And that was really, that was quite an experience. I really appreciate all that. Because I tried real hard, just learning what they're doing and trying to just get their respect and and try to fit in and just try to do the job. It wasn't easy I just feel like it was pretty intense in those kitchens.
After the break, we learn about the experiences that would shape the work Jimmy's doing today and how some unexpected turns led his journey here to Bushwick, where he's tackling his most ambitious projects yet.
This episode is brought to you by you. As an independent member-supported nonprofit, the amazing content you hear on HRN is made possible thanks to our generous community of members and partners. For 10 years, HRN has been a defining voice in America's food movement, and we never would have made it this far without you. Join us in celebrating an amazing decade of food radio and support our summer fun drive by becoming a member of HRN. You can choose from our member gifts and will receive exclusive discounts on HRN events. We truly believe that with your help, we can change the world and our food system, one bite or soundbite at a time. But there's no food radio without you. Go to heritageradionetwork.org/donate before July 31st to do your part to ensure a bright future for your favorite food podcasts.
Over the course of his career in other people's kitchens, Jimmy went on to work at some of the most celebrated restaurants in New York City, like Montrachet, Chanterelle, and 11 Madison Park. But perhaps the most impactful places were the ones that made him think about not just the dishes he was making, but the ingredients he was making them from.
When I was working in this place called Nicole Farhi, she was a designer. She had a shop by Central Park, and downstairs was the restaurant. Nicole's. She's from London. So I was working with this chef, Annie Waits, at the time. And that was the first time I got exposed to a lot of local farms and just more local, like chickens and, small farm eggs and pastured eggs and stuff like that. And, I feel like nowadays people are just so disassociated with their food. Like the supply chain or where it's from, it's like they get it in a supermarket and wrapped up in
Once he became interested in this kind of conscious sourcing and cooking, Jimmy headed west to San Francisco to learn more from the leaders of food movements that sought to maximize the best ingredients for health, wellness, and deliciousness.
Out there really opened me up. I worked for Chef Daniel Patterson. I think his restaurant now is Qua, but back in the day was Elizabeth Daniels was the restaurant. And it was tasting menu only. It's like a 9-course tasting menu, but everything he got was like fucking, the milk, the cream was like in glass, it's like organic local cream milk, and all the vegetables are like local, organic, all their meats. And so that, just being able to work with that really changed me, and just, understanding the practices too. I'm so against a lot of the factory farm stuff. I could go into just the conditions and just the practices.
By the time Jimmy returned to New York, he developed a new clarity around the kind of clean, thoughtful food he was inspired to make. But eventually, he also developed a new clarity around the type of life he wanted to live. He wanted to step away from some of what he calls the craziness of the restaurant industry and find more stability so that he could start a family. So he moved into something that combined what he loved with the life he wanted to make. In Ridgewood, Queens, he opened a boutique seafood supplier that would help connect other people in the industry with great ingredients.
It's called Fish and Ship. It was like a boutique seafood distributor. That's what we were doing over there. It was, we were was about to have wanted to have kids and stuff, and wanted to have a more regular schedule, get out of that craziness.
Craziness, it seems, had other plans. Fish and Chip was just getting started when, in 2012, the shop was devastated by Hurricane Sandy, forcing Jimmy to ask what would come next. But in that destruction, Jimmy and his partners saw an opportunity.
When Sandy hit us, and this is when we were just taking off, we didn't have much money, and it flooded the whole, the shop, and that's when we made the decision to switch it into because there was already a restaurant, that spot. It had like a hood, and it had like, so we were, we needed, to get some money, to make some money faster, I guess. So we were like, let's try a restaurant.
There was just one nagging problem. Jimmy and his team had taken the Fish and Chip location as a restaurant supplier, not a consumer-facing restaurant itself. And at first glance, the location, which was in an industrial part of Ridgewood, was not particularly accessible to their potential customers.
We took that spot because we didn't need a great location or anything. It was mad cheap. It was industrial. It was like, it's like a scrap metal across the street. It was like junkyard down the block. Cement shop right next to us. It was, we never got that space thinking we would have a restaurant. Even thinking back now, I don't know it's kind of crazy that we actually went through with it, but I don't know. I guess it's like the belief that you just feel like if you build something cool, that people will come.
Necessity, of course, is the mother of invention. And in 2013, Jimmy and his brother Jackie, who was himself an accomplished chef, along with those childhood friends from Elmhurst, reconfigured the storefront as a restaurant experience that was, if not necessarily accessible, authentic.
It was a tiny little 24-seater, and it was out in the middle of nowhere, and we had to come up with something that we thought would bring people, because it was like there was no it wasn't close to public transportation or any train stations.
They called it Bunker, a play on the Vietnamese word bun, which refers to the vermicelli noodles common in Vietnamese street food. Despite its somewhat daunting location, the new restaurant quickly became a hit, scoring write-ups in places like the New York Times and the New Yorker, which praised its elegant but unfussy take on Vietnamese cuisine.
We started getting some press, and it just started building from there. I just felt like, we were trying to do something authentic. We weren't, trying to be anything. We were just trying to be ourselves, and showcasing a lot of the dishes that I grew up loving, that I felt like maybe a lot of people weren't familiar with.
Jimmy says that when Bunker was first getting started more than 5 years ago, he felt that the Vietnamese food scene in New York was underrepresented. While New Yorkers today might be more familiar with dishes like Vietnamese pancakes or lemongrass pork, part of what Jimmy wanted to accomplish with that first version of Bunker was to introduce people to a new side of Vietnamese cooking, with dishes that they probably hadn't heard of before.
One was bun shop, which is that Vietnamese pancake. There's this the crispy. It's made with rice flour and turmeric and bacon and shrimp that my mom used to make, and we used to love that dish. And even going to Vietnam and trying it in other households, and it wasn't the same. I always thought my mom's was the best, So I kind of recreated that.
Jimmy also wanted to tackle more familiar Vietnamese staples, like pho, in a way that felt more authentic to his own interests in clean, ingredient-forward cooking.
I wanted to do pho. And I just know, most of the Vietnamese restaurants, even now, most of it's Chinese Vietnamese. And, but just knowing their practices, even in Vietnam, they would just all put MSG and, here is a lot of it's like beef base or chicken base on top of they'll put bones in it, but they'll extend it with like beef base and chicken base, and on top of that MSG and that's like, to me, I just wish people were more aware of what they're eating and stuff like that, because to me that stuff is not healthy. It's not good for you.
The process behind Jimmy's pho has changed quite a bit since he first started making it back at that original Bunker location. And to see how it's changed is to see how Bunker has changed, how it's grown from its humble beginnings in Ridgewood into the restaurant it is today here in Bushwick.
before, it was crazy. We had, the kitchen was crazy. We had one stove that we had to have a stock pot there while we're doing service because, but we didn't have the beef back then. We did the chicken. Otherwise, it would have been impossible.
As Bunker picked up momentum, both the business and the culinary aspirations behind the restaurant quickly outgrew the 24-seater in that industrial part of Ridgewood. So, in 2017, Bunker relocated to its current space here in Bushwick, which is, of course, a bit more accessible for diners. But just as importantly, it's no longer a restaurant in a seafood distributor's body. It's a restaurant through and through, one that's allowed Jimmy and the team to manage the craziness of service as they see fit. Here, they can seat a full evening's worth of diners. Here, Jimmy can invest as much time and effort as he wants into his pho without worrying about how to ration a stove with just one pot for a night's service. Today, Bunker can spend 48 hours just making broth.
Beef pho, we get grass-fed bones that we boil it, a little salt for about 5 to 10 minutes, strain it off, pour out the water, wash the bones, then we fill it back up, then we simmer that for about 12 hours. And then, and then the next day, we'll reinforce that with beef back ribs, brisket, oxtail, shin bone, and cook that. We'll take that out, and then we'll add in roasted shallots, roasted onions, ginger, all the spices, coriander, star anise, cardamom, cinnamon. So there's a lot of layers of but it's like straight up beef, and it's quite a process.
It seems that in many ways, the move to the space here in Bushwick has allowed the team to embrace an even bolder vision for the kind of conscious, ingredient-forward cooking about which Jimmy seems increasingly passionate. Now, they can do things like grow their own mushrooms or participate in events like Goattober.
We're part of Goattober with Heritage.
I didn't know Goattober was.
Yeah.
What is Goattober?
It's just that they want to. I guess they want to expand people's awareness of goat. It's a healthy, and it's a lot of restaurants they start running goats. Like a lot of these are local, really delicious goat. So we did last year. We did some goat pho. And awesome. But I'm big into making soups. I love the whole process. It's like that alchemy involved of turning, bones or something into and extracting that into the broth.
Though Bunker doesn't make a show of it on their menu or marketing, Jimmy seems committed to serving the highest quality meals to diners, even though it may be more expensive for the restaurant.
I put a lot of thought behind it, and a lot of it is people don't even know. Maybe it's a waste, but it's like I say, it's the sugar, the salts we get. It's I use a Himalayan sea salt, and another one is the jade sea salt, and all our sugars, or our fish sauce is Red Bull that we use, and it's 7-8 times the price of regular fish sauce.
Ultimately, for Jimmy, it seems that cooking these days is about putting out food that he can stand by, in terms of the flavors, the authenticity, and the overall, goodness.
I like to stand behind my food. I like to be able to have my family, kids here, and feel good about it. Because I'm into health, so I'm always right now, since I have control over what they eat. I like other people to know that, and come here and feel good about eating whatever that we put a lot of thought and care behind that.
For someone who's been so influenced by his communities, Jimmy now seems focused on how, with Bunker, he might be able to give something back. He and the team are beginning to expand Bunker's footprint beyond the things the restaurant has typically been known for, into exciting new areas that range from live music for diners to health talks in the community to experimental concept dinners.
Yeah, we want to introduce more juices and stuff like that. In Vietnam, what I love about so many of the restaurants, anywhere you go, you get a watermelon juice or a kiwi shake or an avocado shake or It's awesome. There's like papaya or mango, or we want to do. We got a lot more live music. We have a jazz band this Sunday for brunch. We have another band coming. Yeah, we want to do some more music, a lot more music stuff. We want to do. I want to do more. Some fun. We have a raw bar. We want to roll out. And yeah, I want to like some of these concept dinners. I want to do like the 7 courses of beef, or hot pot, or seafood boil, whole animals, stuff like that, or even a vegetarian dinner, or more like chef tasting kind of deal.
If you're interested in learning more about what Bunker has in store or how you might be able to work together, you can follow Jimmy and the team on Instagram at bunker.nyc. You can also visit their website, bunkernyc.com. We've got all this info and more in the show notes for this week's episode. We'd like to extend our sincere thanks to Jimmy and the Bunker team for taking some time out of a hectic prep schedule to take us behind the scenes of the restaurant. And as always, we'd also like to thank you for listening this week. If you enjoy Bushwick Podcast, you can do us a huge favor by telling a friend, or by leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform, which helps us reach even more new listeners with stories like these. We'll be back next week with another story you won't want to miss. In the meantime, did you know that Bushwick Podcast is made by people just like you? We'd love your thoughts and your help. If you have questions, comments, or are interested in getting involved, send us an email to hello@hearbushwick.com. That's HEAR Bushwick.com. Or you can always DM us on our Instagram page at Bushwick Podcast. We look forward to hearing from you soon, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.